Um, we are here today to discuss House Bill 1140. This is a bill that's been assigned to judiciary. We want to give it some airing ahead of session. And so I'd like to call on Representative Clark to come up and present the bill. And so if she's here, oh, she is. Okay, good. I can't see the video, so I'm going to have to watch from Evan's computer as well. So, Representative Clark, you're on, is that right? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can, yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Welch and members of the committee. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules, especially right before the holidays, to hear this bill. Today, I am presenting House Bill 1140, which is LC 412477. While this bill did not get a hearing during the last legislative session, I do intend to refile the bill, and so I welcome this hearing and this conversation today by members of this subcommittee and hope that we can continue this conversation in the next legislative session. So, what does House Bill 1140 do? House Bill 1140 creates a rebuttal presumption that equal or approximately equal parenting time is in the best interest of, of the child in custody cases. Currently, law in Georgia has no presumption, and the visual that I think of is that it puts parents at basically 0 to 0 as the starting line in custody cases, and then from there, the judge makes the decision about where the child will spend their time with each parent. However, this usually leads to the non custodial parent getting less than 25% of parenting time with their child in the state of Georgia. Research, however, suggests that there are mental, behavioral, social, and even physical benefits to children or a child having as much access to both parents as is feasible with a shared physical custody arrangement. And so, what this bill does not do, the goal of this bill is not to tie the hands of our judges. I understand that each situation is unique when it comes to family custody cases, and that there are definitely many factors to consider in these types of cases. This bill, however, is just meant to create a new starting line at 50-50 instead of 0-0. That can be adjusted by a judge and does not preclude that judge from making a determination that shared parenting may not be in the best interest if there is evidence of that fact. So, thank you again for taking the time to hear this bill, and I am happy to take questions from members of the committee.
Thank you, Representative Clark. Let me open with a couple of questions. What triggered your interest in this bill, and why have you brought it?
So, thank you for the question. I actually was approached by several constituents as well as members of the Georgia Parents for Kids' Rights group that has, a vested interest in this. They want to. These are a group of parents that want more time with their children. Um, Also, being a product of divorce, I do understand the importance of having access to both parents. And so when this was brought to me, it was a no brainer for me that this is something that I do think would benefit children in our state. And so that's really kind of where this all came from.
Representative Clark, may I ask you a personal question about your experience as a child of divorce? If I may, just could you elaborate on personally how do you think that that would have helped you if at all, if it was not a shared time for you personally?
So in the case, in my case, when I was 9 years old, my parents got a divorce, and the court ordered arrangement was basically for my dad to get us every other weekend. However, that is not the arrangement that my parents chose to do. And I was actually given a lot more access to my father. When my parents first got a divorce, my mom only moved about 5 miles away. So I was able to see my father quite a bit. And even when we moved a little further away, that arrangement stayed the same. My father was at all of my events, all of my birthday parties, all of my, graduations, anything that I had going on. My father was there right alongside my mom. And so while the courts decided that every other weekend plus holidays, switching back and forth between holidays was enough, my parents actually decided that co-parenting was the better option for us. And so I do think that that benefited me greatly in that I had access to both of my parents.
And so you felt like that having access to your parents in the way that they determined was a good way for co-parenting was beneficial to you on a personal level as you grew up. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay, good. And the okay, if there's nothing, Dale, do you have any? Okay, all right. Chairman Administration has a question now. Tell me how do we trigger this? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Representative Clark, for your bill. Um, are you aware of any other states that have implemented similar legislation, such as Kentucky? And would you be willing to elaborate on the work done in other states in this regard? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So, Kentucky does currently have written into law shared parenting, rebuttal presumption for shared parenting. This passed in 2018 with bipartisan support in both chambers and is currently law. In other states, there is not a presumption. However, it is written into law to consider shared parenting. These include states like Arizona, Missouri, Oregon, and Virginia. There have also been some states that have tried to get this passed and it has not passed, or it was passed by the legislature and then subsequently vetoed by the governor. But in each of those cases, that usually had something to do with something other than the actual shared parenting situation. For example, this happened in Florida, but they also tied into the bill alimony, and there was a lot of contention about alimony, and so therefore the bill, did was vetoed by Governor Rick Scott. But altogether, I do think that this is a good bill, and in Kentucky, again, this bill did pass with bipartisan support. Very few people voted no on the bill, and so I hope to see this in Georgia.
Very good. Okay. All right. Chairman of the Administration, any more questions?
No, sir.
And
Thank you.
Representative Clark, following up on the chairman's questions, do we have in those states that have already had a consideration of shared parenting, could you elaborate a little bit on the nature of that? Is that just an option for the court to consider? It's not a rebuttable presumption. If I'm understanding you correctly, that would be the states of Arizona, Missouri, Oregon, and Virginia.
Yes. So the only state that I know of in my research that currently has a rebuttal presumption is Kentucky. Um, the others, but there are people here that may be able to speak to that a little bit more or better than I can.
Okay, and then do we we have a lot of folks here today, which is fantastic, and we have a lot of people on Zoom for this hearing. So I'm going to ask the question, Representative, but it may not be one you can answer, but perhaps someone that is here today can provide or shed some light on the answer to the question. And that is, in those states where there has been a consideration of shared parenting, co-equal parenting,
Mhm.
do we know, do we have psychological data? Do we have data from how that has impacted the parent-child relationship or the child development relationship um, in in those states? So, do we have some information in that regard? You may not know, but there may be someone here today that has some information. I see some nodding heads, so I'm
Yeah. So I do not have any specific studies on me. However, I do have studies, or I do have studies over that speak directly to the benefits of shared parenting. That there are longitudinal studies. There are multiple studies. There are studies of studies. So I do have quite a bit of data that is in that does speak to the benefits of shared parenting. However, for your specific question on those specific states, I do not have that in front of me, but I'm sure someone in the audience can speak to that, or if not, I can definitely get that information to the members of the committee.
looks like Emma Johnson has responded back that has some data on that when she was on our list to speak with. She's with Moms for Shared Parenting, so we'll hear from her shortly. But I thought I would ask the question in advance to try to help direct some of the conversation. Um,
Perfect.
Chairman Silcox has a question.
Okay.
Yes, Representative Clark, thank you so much for bringing this bill today. And I'm just curious, in terms of child support and alimony payments, all those kinds of things. I know that so much of family law, unfortunately, is about dollars. And do you think that this would influence this or change that whole change the playing field on those particular items? Because I think if someone had custody and they primary custody of the child and they were awarded the child support and that sort of thing, then that might make the dollars a little stickier.
Thank you for that question. I appreciate the question. And it's actually a question that I had myself. When I decided to draft this bill, I did want to make sure that it was a clean bill and I was not changing child support laws or alimony laws at the same time. I did do a little bit of research about the connection between parenting time and child support. And NCSL, which I'm sure all of the legislators in the room are familiar with, does have some data on that, some research on that, that shows in the case of shared parenting, there is actually you are more likely to have compliance with child support than in, yeah. So I was actually really surprised by that as well. That's the only thing I really saw in my research, my limited research on child support. But I do think that that is an important thing to consider, how the extra consequences or the domino effect of any bill that we bring forward. So I did consider that, and yes, from what I saw, it has a positive effect on child support. And I do believe that there are people who are going to speak to that as well.
Thank you. And just to follow up to that, is I believe someone else commented in the chat that Mr. DeLugas, that we do need to add some language then accordingly, so it would not affect those other areas of the law.
Yes. I can definitely take that to legislative council.
Representative Clark, any other hands up from members of the committee? Okay, seeing none, Representative Clark, thank you so much for being so very prepared on this unusual subcommittee meeting to present your bill and the concepts that it contains. I, I, we are grateful for that. And so what we'll do is go through and start calling those that have registered to speak.